Code Review Vision. I'm going to share the ideas we have to create a new version of Code Review. It's much more than just a refactor. It's actually implementing a way to understand software development. Programs must be written for people to read, and only incidentally for machines to execute. This is one of the very famous quotes of the book Structure and Interpretations of Computer Programs, and it actually inspired us in the way in which we see code review and the overall software development. What if we check in with reviewers in mind? What if every single check-in tells part of a story? What if every check-in comment really talks to the person who's going to review it? Help them focus on what really matters and let them save precious time. That's our mission. Help teams get more done, achieving more. At the end of the day, being more successful. And to do that, we remove obstacles, help them focus on what really matters, and guide them on how to collaborate on code. We do all that with our tools. Code Review is a great opportunity to help teams, sharing what we learned about creating software over the years. How task branches are great to reduce interruptions, to secure your changes every few minutes, to experiment capturing all steps and being able to go back and forth. How you can rely on task branches to do efficient context switching when there's no alternative, like a fix or an urgent backfix. How task branches help you structure work and become the real vehicle to deliver changes and go as far as being key to implement DevOps successfully. How code review is essential not only to catch bugs, but to make sure the team shares a common view and force collective code ownership, which is a real key for Agile, to train newcomers. How we learned that checking often and telling a story is a far superior way to help review and understand what was done. How we ended up doing change set by change set code reviews instead of entire branches to save time. Share all the great ideas on how to focus on what really matters with semantic grouping on important changes, basically preparing the path for the reviewer while you code. Pull requests are broken, and we have a great opportunity to fix a big industry problem. Everyone spots 3 issues on a 3 files pull request, but one with 100 files gets immediately approved. That's why pull requests are basically broken. Reviewing pull requests is hard. This is a comment taken from a Atlassian website where they admit reviewing a pull request is hard, and then they just talk about the possibilities and the headaches it introduces. Which means we have a huge opportunity. We have a list of ideas about how task branches combined with best practices help simplify the code review process. Reviews are simpler if someone explains what is really important. If you can skip hundreds of simple renames or irrelevant noisy changes, whether done automatically by semantic tech or manually identifying by the author to help the reviewer. Chainset by chainset reviews with good storytelling and explanation to understand even the toughest refactors. And new ideas like review scripts, which I'm going to be introducing, where the author explains the changes in an asynchronous way. More powerful code reviews, powered by task branches and semantic technology. That's what the new code review system is all about. Now I'm going to introduce a preview of the new code review system and the key concepts and ideas that actually implement all this philosophy I introduced before. First, these are the keys of code review. We found there are 3 key things for the reviewer and the author. The author of the code, the person who's going to review it. For the reviewer, writing comments must be comfortable, easy, and useful. It must not be a pain. It should be very easy to differentiate between questions you ask to the author and changes he just made to fix things you mentioned or to answer your questions. It should be very easy to check if the actions were applied and questions were answered. Then for the author, it should be very easy to check if the actions were applied and questions were answered. It must be very easy to see all the actions, the real thing to change. It must be also very easy to say that an issue or remark was fixed. Let me introduce a preview of how the actual code review system is going to look like. First, you see the typical sections. You see the comments of the branch or checking or change set being reviewed. You see the list of files. You see the actual diff of one of the files. And then you have an area for the comments. It should be very comfortable to just type comments here, actually asking for questions or introducing actions or comments. Also, there are three key elements on the new GUI, which are the list of comments, which are all the possible comments you can enter, and then divided on questions and changes. And it's super easy both for the reviewer and the author to see, well, whether a change is pending, whether it was discarded, and if there are pending questions, and of course the answers. It's also very important to note that our preferred way to review branches is one change set at a time. So you go one by one moving forward, understanding a story told by the developer. On every check-in, he has the opportunity to explain why this isolated change happened. This is a completely different idea to traditional pull request or code review, where you just get the entire branch and try to review. So that's one of the key things that we are going to be introducing in this new code review system. The next thing, it's about changes and questions. So, whenever you type a new comment, you start blank, but then there are a few actions you can type. You just can type a regular comment, like a traditional comment in a code review, like just send text there, but there will be a couple of actions to actually ask a question or request a change. It will be very simple, because at the end of the day, we're going to be using some sort of markup to actually say if we want to enter a question or ask for a change. So the user can type his real request. Please change the inheritance here and use composition. This will be the change request. And then he clicks add, and the change, it's identified by a unique identifier, normally a GUID. The important thing here is that this change is going to go to the change list. And then when the author opens the review again and sees the diffs, he is going to immediately see there's a change pending to be done, in a much more direct way than how code reviews work today. Then, how to say that a change is applied? Well, of course, with a check-in comment. So if you're using the command line, you just can say change and the ID of the change, and then you say this request was actually applied. And then from the GUI, we'll introduce GUI support to actually, okay, if there are pending change requests on your code review, you are going to be able to actually select one of the open ones and say, okay, I'm actually fixing that with this change set. The important thing is that when the reviewer goes back to the review interface, he's going to see it's done. It's going to click here, and there in this section, he's going to see the actual diff of the change set where his request was fixed. So the conversation is completely driven and much more easy to understand. And then, of course, there are ways to say, well, I want to discard this change because I cannot apply it. It will end up like this, right? Saying, okay, it has been discarded. And then as the reviewer, you can admit that change or just reject it, but you know exactly the status. The second thing are just the questions. Instead of typing a change, you can simply type a question on the interface. And when that happens, when you just click ask a question or just enter the question mark section, then the questions are going to show up here. Questions are not as important as changes, but they require an answer. And the way to answer will be just typical comment reply layout, which is something I'm going to introduce here. Basically, we're going to use a thread way to drive the conversation. So you have a first comment, then you add another one, and then there will be threaded conversations in here, like being indented in and out. So the way to actually know a question was replied is if the actual comment introduced in the question was replied. We're going to introduce comments for images too. So it's going to be super easy to just mark a section of an image and add a comment for it. It will also happen for different sections, and like in code, there's no vertical ordering, but it's going to be possible to just select and comment on different sections. And then we'll also be able to comment on different views. This is just viewing the image itself, but here we're defining an image and seeing that there's an area where something changed. So we can just select that and comment on comment there, and then the author or the reviewer coming back will be able to see exactly the same view the reviewer was seeing when introducing the comment. We're going to introduce a global conversation panel where you can have just a conversation about the review in general without going into a file per file basis. Maybe you want to just make a general comment, like saying the change is not worth, or for this other approach should be done there. So this is what is going to be achieved from this conversation panel. And from here, we're also going to configure things like the reviewers. There can be more than one. There can be even optional reviewers, mandatory reviewers. Sometimes you want the change to be approved by 3 people at least, or something like that. And also the developers involved, typically the author, but there could be others in there. That's one of the key new things we're going to introduce. And then one of the most exciting things that actually drive our vision of how code review should be is what we call the review scripts. And let's start with an example. Look at this. Suppose you have these changes. You have a list of 4 changed files and then a file that was added. And suppose that when you check in this, you want to help the reviewer. You want to tell him a story, but you want to tell him really what's going on here to save him time. So the script could be something like that. File simple CS just contains the redesign of the calculation. File calc.cs contains code extracted for base commands, and then you create a group. Just method renames in var, foo, and base commands impl. So the thing is, with this comment, Plastic is going to render this diff differently. It's going to be something like this. It's putting first the thing you consider more important, then the second one, and then it's creating a group. This saves a lot of time, and this actually solves this big issue with pull requests, where you see 100 modified files and then you go for coffee because you think you need a break. This way, we really keep reviewer focused because we are helping them in advance understand that all these files here are not worth their time that much, or they just can take a quick look into them. This is going to be a great time saver. There will be different types of possible actions in review scripts, like just commenting to a file, or maybe grouping, or even marking a given selection on a file, or even just a specific diff. A specific diff into a file, or just even a method. It will require, of course, semantic support. The thing is that, well, it's going to be very simple to just start typing diff and then refer to a given file and then refer exactly to a given change. This will help drive the conversation. Instead of just listing a bunch of files that were modified, you're going to drive the reviewer. Okay, check this first, second this. You're actually helping him in a synchronous manner, but actually replicating what you will do if you were sitting next to him. The next thing is the rendering of those scripts. Basically, we expect something like this, with hyperlinks to actually click and go to the right location, and so on. And finally, and probably the most awesome thing we're going to be working on, is what we call the refactor review scripts. Suppose you have something like that, a piece of code moved, extracted from one method used to create another one. This is something that the current semantic merge and semantic diff technology is not handling, because we work on a method level, but we don't extract pieces in there. But suppose as a developer, you just enter a command like this one. You specify you made a refactor, and then you specify, with help of the UI, of course, where the refactor started and ended. In my case, it goes from line 167 to 74, and then it was moved to this other location. Suppose you are able to do something like that. Well, it will be much more easier for the reviewer to understand what's going on, because you are giving them a very clear explanation. And then, and that's probably our big next idea, is what if we can use these refactor review scripts to drive the merge, not only to explain the reviewer what's going on, but also as an input for the merge system to know how to merge complicated things. It's not just an overview, they are specific instructions to drive how the merge should work. Well, these are some of the great ideas we have for the code review system, and we expect they're going to be a great way to finish the entire understanding of task branches we have. Hope you enjoyed.